is it that you think about when you think about the spiritual success zone? What does that mean? Does it mean that you get into the zone of improvement? Or really what it is to get into the zone of being very productive, because you're in that success zone. You're in the zone with the Lord where he touches and changes all things. He helps to improve relationships. He helps to improve our productivity. He keeps us away from anything and everything that is going to interfere with us being successful. And the biggest thing that we can look at when we come into the spiritual success zone is our attitude. What does it mean to have a great attitude or even a good attitude? Have people said to you, boy, you really have a good attitude? Or on the other hand, if they said to you, ooh, your attitude stinks, or you need to have an improved attitude. Or here's a good question for you. Do you have a different attitude depending on what you're doing? If you're doing something you like, you're all happy and you have a great attitude. But if you're doing something that you don't particularly like, do you say, I don't like doing this, and your attitude stinks? Say that you're making a dinner and that you don't really, say, like to cook. Are you just putting it on the table and you're like, here's your dinner, enjoy? Or are you saying, gosh, I really enjoy this, I'm going to do the best I can? Our attitude affects everything we do. No matter where we go, what we do, even what we think, our attitude comes into play. And if we consciously think about adjusting our attitude, then the Lord can touch us by his power, by his might, to give us success in all that we do. If you walk into your boss and you have a negative attitude, well, what's going to happen immediately? That boss is going to have a negative attitude as well, or going to be like, what is wrong with you? Why do you have such a poor attitude? But if we walk in there and we're upbeat and we're thinking positive and we're saying, I know that I'm going to have favor with this boss today and I'm going to have a great attitude, then almost immediately their attitude changes because your attitude changes. Our attitude, whether we like it or not, has a great deal to do with how the outcome of things turn out because of our attitude. And when we have that good attitude, we can be blessed in so many different ways. Here's another example. When you go to a restaurant and you have a good attitude with the server and you say, please and thank you, and could you help me with this or that or the other thing, then you're probably more than likely going to get good service. Same thing on the other end. Have you had a waiter or waitress that has had a poor attitude and they come at you and they're just very abrupt or curt and they're just very blunt about serving you? Well, then you don't have as nearly as enjoyable experience. So I want you to walk away today with thinking about how our attitude affects our disposition, the outcome of things, and if we walk in that zone of success. Because with a proper and a good attitude, the outcome is very positive. And it doesn't matter really what the other person may think or do. It's all about your attitude, for that's what's driving you. If you have to make a change and you have a good attitude about the change, then likely that change is going to go well. But if you have a poor attitude about that change, then likely the change is not going to go well. So I want you to just think about, as you go forward in these days ahead, what is your attitude like? What is, when you go into anything, when you wake up in the morning, do you have a good attitude? You're like, I'm not going to say that you're like, I can't wait to start the day. But do you wake up with, it's another day, I have to go to work, I got to do this, I got to do that? What is your attitude with those you encounter? Are you happy to see them? Are you trying to improve their life? Or are you having a poor attitude when you meet people? So think about in all your encounters, what is your attitude? What are you doing to make a difference in your life, but also for others? Because you're going to be in that success zone, the better your attitude is, and you will make others' lives better. But also, too, as we will talk about in the next video, we're going to talk about the adjustment that we need to make. So what are the adjustments? So I encourage you to tune into the next video on adjustments. And as I leave you today with attitude, think about all the times, the different attitudes that you have and how you can improve that attitude. Thanks, and have a blessed day. Today's topic is one I'm very passionate about. It's about adjustments. Now you're saying to yourself, what does she mean by adjustments? You go to the chiropractor and the chiropractor makes an adjustment to your body. What does that do? That gets you in line, that lines you up so that you're not in pain or you don't have any sort of problem. So you want to make some adjustments. So today I'm going to talk to you in this video about adjustments to your finances, your lifestyle, your work-life balance, and then relationships. All right, so I want you to think about for a moment as we talk about an adjustment to our finances. I like to start with that one because sometimes people don't want to think about making an adjustment to their finances. But in these times that we've been going through lately, there's been a tremendous amount of adjustment to our finances. Why? Because everything has gone up in price. Everything costs more. You used to go to the grocery store and be able to get a cart full of groceries for around $100. Well, that's not even possible anymore. So we've had to make an adjustment. What have you done to adjust to that? And going back to the previous video, have you had a poor attitude about making that adjustment? So think about it for a moment. Have you made an adjustment? This is something I've done very consciously, probably for the last 3 years, very consciously, is coupons come out every Wednesday. So I make sure that I clip my digital coupons every Wednesday so that when I go to the store for the week, I can have that adjustment to the grocery bill. And I'm very conscious to have my list and to buy mainly what is on that list. So I'm not doing so much impulse buying. That is an adjustment to my spending, to my finances, to what I can spend and cannot spend. Okay? What other adjustment to your finances? Maybe you haven't been able to have a savings account for very long. Well, then what can you do to make an adjustment to that savings account? Do you put aside $5 every day? I had a friend of mine who every day at the end of the day, she would put a jar for just their change. And it was amazing. They would put that change into the bank. And it was amazing after like 20 years how much money they had saved. And just by making that small adjustment to their finances, they were able to save a tremendous amount. Sometimes it's not those major adjustments that make the difference. It's sometimes those smaller adjustments that we tend to forget about. But then too, I go back to attitude again. If we have a poor attitude about that adjustment, well, then we're going to be very upset about that. So back to the adjustment with the finances. And then what happened with me I'm saving the money on my grocery bills, but then I'm also, when I go to get gas, the other day I had $1 off on my gas. Well, that makes a huge difference. So just by even making the small adjustments, sometimes we think, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And we wait for those major adjustments to come forth. If we start making small adjustments along the way, they're much easier to take. All right? So my next one is lifestyle adjustments. All right, so what are lifestyle adjustments? It goes back to attitude again. Like when I get up in the morning, what kind of adjustment do I need to make to my lifestyle? Maybe I used to not be a planner so much, and I would wait until the last minute to do something. Well, what has that gotten me? For me personally, it's given me a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst, where I'm like, oh, now I don't have any time to do this. Versus an adjustment to my lifestyle. Okay, I need to get these things done by the end of the week. What am I going to do? It's kind of like on a to-do list. Most people will say make a to-do list and knock out the easiest things first. If you knock out the hardest things first, guess what? You're not dreading them the whole time you're doing the other ones. And yes, that may seem like a simple adjustment, but it's huge in the long run because you're making that change, that adjustment to your, not only your attitude about what you're doing, but your adjustment to the pattern and the cycle that you've gotten into in what you're doing. So what other lifestyle adjustments come up? Maybe every morning you're in the habit of getting on your phone and answering emails. Is that the most productive? Or should you make an adjustment of waking up first thing in the morning and praying? That's been a huge adjustment for me. I can't say that every day I didn't pray, yes, but when I am conscious to get up and I journal with the Lord every morning, and that has made all the difference for me. I sit with the Lord and let him speak to me as I journal. Not only do I capture his messages to me, but then it gives me that calm and that peace every day to go forth. So I challenge you in maybe making a small adjustment into your lifestyle. What are those small things you can think about doing? All right. Now, the next one, the work-life balance. When I was teaching full-time, this was probably the most difficult for me. I would come home and I would be, of course, exhausted, but then I had papers to grade, lesson plans to do, you name it. And I just had no work-life balance. I would get up every morning exhausted. I would go to bed every night exhausted. I would go to work exhausted because I really didn't have that balance. I put anything and everything into my teaching, which is, I'm not saying is a bad thing, but it is for my work-life balance. And my husband would always say to me, let's make that adjustment. Let's make an adjustment to, no, you're not grading papers all night. No, you're not grading papers all weekend. You need to take a break. And I had to consciously make those adjustments. But then once I stopped teaching, then I was like, what do I do? I'm not in this cycle that I was in before, where I would constantly be on almost like a treadmill of that. Another work-life balance is, do you take time for yourself? We have been told, at least I was told growing up, that it was very selfish to take care of yourself. Well, guess what? If you don't, you can't take care of anybody else. And my health often would suffer because I wasn't taking care of myself. So it's that work-life balance. There's time for everything, but you have to make it a priority to do so. So think about, what are lifestyle adjustments? What are things that people are saying to you that you don't have time for, or maybe that you are upset you don't have time for? And I'm not saying to waste time. I got into a bad habit, if I would say so, of spending too much time maybe answering emails. Did I have to spend all that time answering the email? And there was another procrastination thing where I'd wait and I don't want to answer that email quite yet. Well, why didn't I just knock that out? Because every time I went to answer an email, then I thought about that one I didn't want to answer. So again, think about what adjustments can you make, and just start small. Don't go with big, huge adjustments, okay? All right. Last one we're going to talk about today is relationships. When we make adjustments in our relationships, that can change so many things. Think about all the different relationships we have in our life. If you're married, you have a spouse, but we have friendships. Depending on your age, you might have parents, grandparents, bosses, co-workers, all kinds of relationships. What adjustments do you need to make in your relationships? When we do marriage consulting with our engaged and married couples, we talk about this quite a bit. We talk about the adjustments that need to be made. One of the biggest things that we've encountered with most of our couples is they overcommit for the holidays. They want to go see her parents and his parents. And sometimes if the parents are separated or divorced, then they're going to both sets of parents. We had one couple one time that had 7 commitments for the holidays. And we said, what are you thinking? Why don't you make the adjustment and start your own tradition? You say, you know what? We're going to see you at different times. We're going to do our own tradition, our own thing that we want to do. So they had to make a major adjustment. That was more of a major adjustment that involved a lot of people of changing things up. But maybe you can't start that major and you say, okay, I'm going to just start with something small. Maybe there's a person in your life that's always crossing a boundary. How can you make the adjustment to help them not cross that boundary? It really starts with us. What can you say? Say, I'm sorry, but I just don't have time for you today. I still care about you. I still want to spend time with you, but not today. So I want you, as I close today, I want you to think about let's just take 3. What are 3 adjustments you can make, small, right away, where it will make a profound difference in your life? What is it? Maybe it's an adjustment to your attitude. Maybe it's an adjustment to a relationship. Maybe it's an adjustment to your spending. Maybe it's an adjustment to your work-life balance. Maybe it's an adjustment to just how you wake up in the morning. I encourage you, I even challenge you to start the morning and end your day with the Lord. Make that adjustment your priority, and that will make all the difference. So I ask you to join me for my next video, which will again be another A. Now I have to cheat and look at it. It is acceptance. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video about acceptance. Thank you. My topic for this video is all about acceptance. So what does it mean to accept something or even someone? So I want to talk today about acceptance of a situation. And I'm going to talk more so about a current situation. And like in my last video where we talked about adjustments, I'm going to talk about the acceptance of the adjustments we have to make, which goes right along with attitude. And then the acceptance of our relationships, specifically family relationships. So as we go along in this video, I encourage you to comment in the comment section about what are the things that you are having a difficult time accepting. Are there things that you just cannot, will not, don't want to accept? Because it really goes into those categories: cannot, will not, or really don't want to accept. So I encourage you to comment, because I love looking at the comments and seeing what people are thinking and what really they're struggling with, because I do a lot of mentoring with people and I really like to help them over these hurdles. So I like to hear what you are struggling with in your acceptance. So let's think about current situations. Maybe you have had to make an adjustment to your current situation, like I talked about in the previous video about an adjustment to your spending. Okay, so are you struggling accepting that? Or are you saying, gosh darn it, I don't want to make a change. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to not do this. Well, who are you hurting in not accepting that? You're not hurting anybody else but yourself. You have to come to the acceptance of what is your current situation and how are you going to deal with it? Because you're only going to make everyone else miserable. Personally, I've had a lot of major health issues, and I came to the realization quite early, thank goodness, that I had to accept where I was in that health situation. I'm not saying that I accepted poor health. No. But like I broke my ankle and was on crutches for 2 years. I didn't have a choice in that, but I had to accept it. I had to deal with it. And really, there's still some fond memories of that, by where I really came to the acceptance of that was my plight in life for that time period, for those 2 years, and I had to accept it. And it goes back again to that attitude and that adjustment that has to be made in what you're going to do, how you are going to accept it. So what is your current situation? What are you doing right now that you're having a difficult time accepting? For a lot of people, it comes down to finances, but there's many different things. Are you having a difficult time accepting that maybe your looks aren't what they want? I think all of us, especially women, but men too, we struggle with accepting how we look. Well, then are there things that you can adjust to that? Or are there things of just the way you are? I have a huge bump on my nose. Well, it's been broken 3 times. Have I gotten it fixed? No. Does it bother me looks-wise? Sure. But is it enough to get it fixed? No. So, again, what am I willing to accept and not to accept? All right? Then again, the acceptance of the adjustments. Are you going to accept that adjustment that you have to make? Or are you going to fight it? Like I said before, if you fight it, it's just going to make it worse. Is it inevitable? Is it that you had to start again with your job? Is it I got hired for a job after I taught for many years, and then I went away from it and did for a year of other things, and then I came back? I had to accept that I was going to start at a lower level. But then the Lord rose me up and got me further in the job than I had ever imagined. But I had to accept where I was, not to think that I was better than everyone else, but it was an acceptance of where my current position was. Because I will tell you, the more you fight it, the more you come against it, the harder it is. All right, so then let's talk about relationships, especially family. I think for a lot of people, they have a very difficult time accepting maybe their position in the family, maybe the people in their family, whatever the case may be. They have a difficult time with acceptance of family. But we have to remember, God gave us our family. We didn't get to choose them. We can choose our friends, but we cannot choose our family. But something the Lord impressed upon me the other day. He said, I put you in your family, in the position in your family, because I'm the middle child, and I put you there for a specific purpose, a specific reason. So, am I accepting of that, or am I fighting that? Am I going back to Him and saying, okay, Lord, help me with this acceptance? Or am I fighting it and saying, no, I won't accept that. I don't like my family. I'm going to do whatever the case may be to find a new family. I won't accept my family. And I'm not saying that they are your best friends. I'm not saying that. But they are your family. And there's nothing you can do to change that. But is that a bad thing? Maybe in some cases, yes. But if you come into that acceptance, don't be angry about it. Come into the acceptance of saying, okay, maybe my family isn't perfect because I don't know any family that is. But we can accept the family that the Lord has given us. And we can say, okay, Lord, help me to deal with this family. That's all I'm saying to you. So it goes back to, again, the acceptance. So I encourage you again to tell me in the comments, what are you struggling to accept? What are you having the most difficult time accepting in your life? Because those are the things that will stop us from moving ahead. We fight it. We say, no, I don't want to do that, instead of accepting it and moving on. Was it really that big of a deal in the long run? Back to when I broke my ankle. Was it a big deal? Sure. I couldn't go to college when I was supposed to. There was all kinds of things that it interfered with. But if I looked at that with just a miserable, back to attitude, if I had a miserable attitude about it, well, then guess what? It made the adjustment more difficult and thus my attitude more difficult. So think about the acceptance of what are you really, and I'll just say one thing. What is right now for you the most difficult thing for you to accept? And ask yourself why. Or maybe you don't have an answer why. Then ask the Lord to reveal it to you. And believe me, he will. Because he wants us to come into that acceptance of whatever he has for us. And to accept it and embrace it. And let him make that difference in our lives. So I encourage you to do so. And I encourage you to click on the next video where I bring all three of these together. Yes, I've done that in these videos so far, but I make the connection between the three that I've talked about: the attitude, the acceptance, and the adjustment. Thank you for joining me. See you soon. This is going to be one of the most powerful videos, so hold on to your seat. Get ready for the wild ride. I'm bringing all three of what I was talking about with the A's: the attitude, the adjustment, and the acceptance. All right, so let's look at those. And yes, I've numbered them intentionally differently. I have acceptance as number 1, attitude and adjustment to come to accomplishment. If we do not have acceptance, attitude, and adjustment, we cannot get the best accomplishment. So I want you to think about how those three work together. And I'm going to give you a personal, very personal example to help you understand how this works together. So first and foremost, I will tell you, in any of these, if you get the Lord's why, it will make everything so much easier. How do you get the Lord's why? You need to ask him. You say, Lord, why am I going through this? Can you tell me, Jesus, what is going on? Why am I going through this? So I will tell you, several years ago, well, not several, but a few years ago, I took an early retirement from teaching. And my husband and I traveled many different places for many different reasons, which I'll share in other videos. But we traveled a lot, and then the Lord told us we had to come back to our home state of Colorado. Now, we didn't necessarily want to do that, but then this next piece, he said we had to move in with my mother-in-law. Well, like I talked about in the last video, about acceptance, I really did not want to accept that. It wasn't that my mother-in-law and I don't have a good relationship. No, but I'm 60 years old. Do I really want to move back in with my mother-in-law? No. But we said, okay, Lord, you must have a plan. You must have a purpose. We had to go to that acceptance. All right. Very, very important. That's why I put that as number one, is acceptance. So we moved back in with my mother-in-law into this little bedroom in her home. And she was very gracious to welcome us in. I'm not saying that. Okay. Ben was here 2 days and my husband completely blew out his back. He was bedridden. Talk about a double whammy. Not only are we here in my mother-in-law's house, but we are now stuck here in my mother-in-law's house because he blew out his back and could do nothing. So I had to accept that fact. So did he. Now, I'm not going to say it was easy, but we had to, again, get the Lord's why. Well, he had to bring us back so that through a series of events, my husband got the top surgeon in the state to do his surgery, which made a huge difference and then made him better than new. He's a very tall man and had a lot of compression in his back, disc problem and whatnot. And so it helped him tremendously to get this top surgeon. Okay, but we had to ask for the Lord's why. Why, Lord, are you bringing us back here, number one? Why did my husband blow out his back, number two? But then there were several other whys in the journey that we had to go back to the Lord time and time and time again to get his why, because we cannot figure it out. We tend to look at just the obvious. I'm stuck here. My husband's bedridden. Okay, those are the things that we look at, and then what happens? We have a terrible attitude. So we don't accept it, we have a poor attitude, and then we don't make that adjustment. So we are avoiding the inevitable. We are avoiding going to the Lord and asking the why, because what? We don't want the answer he's going to give us. But as I said before, it leads to, by getting the acceptance of our current situation, our current position, our current whatever the case may be, then we can get the proper attitude, a good attitude, not a poor attitude, and then make the necessary adjustment to do what needs to be done to deal with the situation and the circumstance. But it starts with that acceptance. And I'm not saying a lot of times acceptance is easy, but is a poor attitude or complaining or whatever the case may be, is that going to make the situation better? Is that going to improve the situation? Or is it just going to make it worse? The Lord told me throughout this entire process of being with my mother-in-law, are you getting any further by complaining about it and looking at this as a problem? Is that getting you further? Is that making your stay easier? Or is it making it harder? Well, of course it was making it more difficult. But I hadn't made the adjustment to my attitude in that acceptance. And therefore, it was very painful. It was very difficult. But I had to find out his why. Because one of his biggest whys for us being there was to help his brother, who was going through some major issues that he didn't even realize, and to help him to now where his brother is flourishing tremendously. But had we not been there, had we not been inserted into his life, literally, not by our choice, but by the Lord's doing, then he wouldn't be where he is today in a very lucrative, flourishing job. but not only our prayers, but our finding out why and our acceptance of that to make the adjustment to our thinking. So again, I encourage you in the comments to tell us, or tell me mainly, what is it that you are maybe struggling with in these three areas, with attitude, with adjustments, and with acceptance of all of whatever is going on. Because every day, no matter what, we encounter many, many different things. But what is it that you are struggling with, bringing all three of those together to make a difference and to find out, like I said, asking for the Lord's why. Why? Because when he gives you your why, it's like this. Oh my, I never looked at it that way, because we get very internal. We want to know what it is. It's about us, not about the other person, but about us. So sometimes he has to shift our focus and say, no, I want you to look at it because of what you need to do for another person, not just for us. And another video that I will share with you is about our encounters, education, and experiences that really make it a huge difference in where the Lord calls us throughout our lives, and that we can gain as much as we can from those education, encounters, and experiences. So I encourage you to think about, to look at, but then ask the Lord for his why of whatever you might be avoiding, because that is the next video I am going to do for you, is another A of avoidance. If we are not making the acceptance and making the adjustment to our attitude, we are not able to accomplish what he has for us to accomplish. And really, all we are doing is avoiding the inevitable, because it will happen. He will bring it about. So if we keep avoiding it, then we're just avoiding it, and we're just delaying or getting away from the inevitable of what is going to happen. But it's not a bad thing. It goes back to that attitude. If we look at it as, oh, this is going to be the worst thing ever. When I had no home, my own home, I thought that was the worst. To me, that was the worst thing that could be. Well, really? Was that the worst thing that could be? No, it wasn't. But I had to learn it according to the Lord. So think about that and click on the next video about avoidance and see, maybe that will resonate with you. And you'll say, aha, now I know what I'm avoiding. Now I know what I'm not doing to move forward. Thank you for joining me. See you soon. What are you avoiding? What are you trying to stay away from? What are you avoiding doing? Who are you avoiding? Answer that question, and do me a favor. Put your answer that you first popped into your head in the comment section. I want to hear what you're avoiding. What are you trying to get away from? What are you trying not to do? Are you avoiding exercising? Are you avoiding eating healthy? Are you avoiding a person? Are you avoiding getting a job? Are you avoiding going to school? Are you avoiding talking to your boss about a raise? What is it that you are avoiding? I will tell you, with avoidance, what happens is we are staying away from often what the Lord has in store for us. In the last 3 videos that I just did on with the A's, I had attitude, I had adjustment, and I had acceptance. Those were the 3 videos. Okay? Well, they are contrary to avoidance. Because with avoidance, we are not going to have a good attitude. We are not going to make adjustments. And we certainly are not going to accept anything. So what is it? Like I asked you to put in the comments, what is it you're avoiding and why? Once again, it goes back to asking for the Lord's why. Why are you avoiding that? Have you made it bigger than it really is? Here's a simple example. You're avoiding cleaning the house. Well, yeah, I'm not going to say it happens like that. Okay, but why? Why are you avoiding it? Because you don't want to do it. Okay. You say, I don't have time to do it. Okay. But let me give you another adjustment to your thinking that maybe will help you. What if you cleaned a room a day? Maybe you have junk drawers in every room. So clean a drawer a day. I will give you one key that somebody gave me very early on. If you take the time to clean up just a small area, say the kitchen. I will not go to bed without cleaning the kitchen. I hate waking up to dirty dishes. Okay? Yes, I could avoid it, but what is going to happen if I keep avoiding it? It's going to be a big mess in the morning. And then what's going to happen? I'm going to have a bad attitude when I wake up because I avoided doing the dishes the night before. But even better, my husband and I made an adjustment. When I cook, he does the dishes. If he cooks, then I'll do the dishes. So that is why avoidance is the enemy's trap always. Avoidance to me is another word for avoidance is procrastination. I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to avoid it. Why? Is it going to go away? Are those dirty dishes going to clean themselves? No. If I'm avoiding getting a new job because I hate my job, is complaining about my job, having a poor attitude about my job, avoiding getting a new job, is that going to help me? No. We have to make the adjustment to our attitude so that we can accept our current situation, not avoid what is to be done, and do it. So why else do we avoid things? Why? See if you can answer that why. Think about it for a moment. Why do you avoid doing or accomplishing certain things? For a lot of people, it's self-confidence. I could never do that. I will tell you, I was probably one of the most fearful people of public speaking that you will ever know. I would avoid it like the plague. People would say to me, but you teach. Why? You're in front of people all the time. I'd say, well, yeah, but those are my students. I'm not public speaking. I would avoid it like I just can't even tell you. And what I realized when I took it back to the Lord and I asked for his why, he told me because the enemy was trying to keep me away from what I'm doing. I would have never, I remember the first time when I was teaching college and I had to make a video. I bet I took days to get it and I kept avoiding it. I couldn't avoid it any longer. I had to do it because it was part of the program that I was in that I had to do this video. Then I said, well, can I do it where I'm not there? You just hear my voice and you don't see me? I'm like, no. But I kept working at avoiding because I didn't want to accept it. But guess what? I finally did it. But now that I have accepted, I have made the adjustment and I have the right attitude. The Lord gives me the grace to speak in front of people. it's not me, it's what he wants me to do. And I have accepted that. I no longer am avoiding doing what he asked me. Because really what it is just ends up being a battle. It's a battle of wills. It's like a little kid stomping their feet. No, I'm not going to do that. No. Well, is it the inevitable? I vaguely remember as a little kid when my mom had hepatitis, we had to get shots because she had hepatitis. And I just went running and screaming around the doctor's office trying to avoid getting the shot. Was that even a possibility? Was that an option? No. I was avoiding the inevitable. I was avoiding what was going to have to happen. And why? Because I didn't want it. Well, no child wants a shot, but it had to be done. So I had to change my attitude. I had to have an adjustment to that. And I had to accept that, yes, I'm going to get the shot. Was it nearly as bad as I thought it was? No. But I had built it up in my mind. So I want you to think about that. What are you avoiding? What are you not wanting to accept and make the adjustment to your attitude to do that the Lord is often asking us to do? Because when we come into the acceptance of that, we no longer walk in that avoidance. That's the enemy's trap to me. That's truly the enemy's trap, is avoidance. The Lord wants us in that acceptance because we accept his will for our lives, for his will to be done. Because then he's in control. He's in control anyway. But as soon as we can accept that and stop avoiding that, our life is so much better. And it's a daily walk. So I thank you for joining me for this teaching, and I look forward to our next one, which will come up as the next suggestion in the playlist. So thank you. Have a blessed day. See you soon.